The average toddler's brain processes the world at 1/10 the speed of yours. And someone in Silicon Valley knew that before they designed your child's favorite app. Let's start with something that will probably surprise you. When a toddler watches fast-moving content on a phone or tablet, their little body does not just sit there, calmly absorbing information. Their nervous system literally goes into survival mode. We are talking about the same fight-or-flight response that kicks in when you think you're about to get into a car accident. Heart rate spikes, muscles flood with energy. The body prepares for danger, and the wild part is the child is just sitting still in a chair watching a cartoon. Here is why this happens. Researchers have found that toddlers' brains process information up to 10 times slower than adult brains. 10 times. So when content is flying at them with rapid scene changes, a flood of characters, explosive sounds, and constant movement, their brains simply cannot keep up. The nervous system essentially panics. It interprets all that overwhelming stimulation as a threat, and the stress response kicks in automatically. Now ask yourself this: how many times a day is your young child watching fast-paced videos on YouTube, kids, TikTok-style content, or even those rapid-fire cartoons that seem totally harmless? If you are like most parents today, the answer is probably more than you are comfortable admitting. And that is not a judgment. That is just the reality of modern parenting. Scientists at the University of East London have been digging deep into this exact question. They tracked eye movements, monitored heart rates, and measured brain activity in young children as they watched different types of content. What they found has now directly influenced new government guidance in England, released in early 2026, advising that children under the age of 2 should have zero solo screen time. None. And for children between 2 and 5, the recommendation is a maximum of 1 hour per day, with no screens at mealtimes and no screens in the hour before bed. But here is where it gets even more interesting. The research goes beyond just stress responses. Scientists have been studying the link between how much television young children watch and how they manage their emotions and behavior as they grow older. And the findings are pretty clear. The more screen time a child logs in their early years, the more likely they are to struggle with emotional regulation later on. We are talking about increased tantrums, more difficulty managing frustration, and behavioral challenges that persist over time. There is something even more counterintuitive buried in this research. Many parents, and honestly, almost every parent does this at some point, reach for a screen to calm a child down during a meltdown. It works in the moment. The child quiets, peace is restored. But what the data suggests is that using screens as an emotional pacifier actually makes emotional dysregulation worse over the long run. You are essentially teaching the child's brain to outsource emotional regulation to a device rather than developing those internal coping mechanisms naturally. So every time you hand over the tablet to stop the crying, you might be making future tantrums more likely and more intense. Now, before you spiral into guilt, let's talk about what this actually means in real life, because here's the tension that every modern parent faces. Technology is not going anywhere. We live in a world where smart devices are embedded in daily life. Even a simple smart speaker in a family home is now an AI-powered device that young children interact with regularly. The idea of completely shielding kids from screens is probably not realistic, and some experts argue it may not even be the right goal. The goal, based on what researchers and child development specialists suggest, is about quality, context, and boundaries. There is a meaningful difference between a child passively consuming hyperstimulating content alone versus watching something slow-paced and age-appropriate, alongside a parent who is engaged and talking with them about what they are seeing. Shared screen time, where an adult is present and actively participating, is fundamentally different from dumping a child in front of a device and walking away. What about content type? Fast-paced social media-style videos and AI-driven entertainment tools appear to be the most problematic for developing brains. Slow, predictable, age-appropriate programming with familiar characters and simple storylines is significantly less likely to trigger that stress response and sensory overload. So, what does this practically mean for you starting today? First, if you have a child under 2, try to keep screen exposure to genuinely shared moments, like a video call with grandparents. Second, for toddlers and preschoolers, aim for that 1 hour daily limit. Third, think carefully about what they are watching. Slow and steady wins here. Fourth, never use screens right before bed, since that is a critical wind-down period for the developing brain. And fifth, Resist the urge to use screens as an emotional band-aid during tantrums, even though it feels like the easiest solution in the moment. Here is the bottom line. Screen time itself is not the apocalypse. The type of content, the amount, the context, and your presence as a parent all matter enormously. The science is still evolving, and guidelines will continue to be updated as researchers learn more. But right now, the evidence points in a clear direction. Young brains need real-world stimulation, human connection, and space to develop at their own pace. Your kid's brain is building itself right now, and how you manage their screen environment is one of the most powerful levers you have as a parent. Drop a comment below telling me how you personally handle screen time in your household. I want to know what actually works for real families, because the struggle is real, and none of us are getting this perfectly right. I've linked a resource in the description that I think you'll find really helpful. Please subscribe to our channel for more helpful advice.